Captain Crabby was there in his office, and then boom, he was at this place in heaven, and he walked through this veil. It was like smoke, but it was so beautiful, full of shininess. It was shiny, shiny, shiny smoke, but it wasn't smoke. It was a veil. It was something he'd never seen before. It was like a cloud. And the cloud was so full of light and so full of love. He walked closer and closer and closer through that. And when he heard the sound of laughter, oh, he's coming. Oh, I'm so glad he's coming. And they were saying about me, that I was coming. I was coming through that veil, through that smoke. And one man came, and his name was Dr. Hurston, and he gave me a big hug. And he says, we've all been waiting for you. Oh, come. And they walked up this grass hill. And I looked, and the grass was so beautiful. It was green. It was bright. And when you walked on it, you'd step down on that grass, and when you looked behind you, it would be blink. It would be perfectly green, and like nobody had ever walked on it. And I looked a little further, and there were these flowers, and there was this big long wall. And the wall had all these stones in it, and the stones were shining, and they were brilliant like jasmine and colors, that bright, bright colors. But it was a wall. And I thought, I've never seen a wall like that before. And I came further, and there was this big pearly gate. It was a gate out of pure pearl. There was a man standing there, and he said, "You are invited to come down the path." And I said, "There's a path for me?" "Yes, it's just for you. You need to stay on that path." And it was about 6 feet wide. And you know what the path was made out of? It was made out of gold. A gold path, and when you stepped on it, things inside of you came alive. It was how you lived your life. It was how you believed for things to happen for your life. And when I believed for things to happen for my life, that I would go to other countries, and countries would be I would come to those countries, and those countries, I would get to know the people in those countries. Oh, children, do you want to go to the nations? I wanted to go to the nations with all my heart, and I still want to go to the nations. And there's a promise, is I will give you the nations and their place and your place in the nations and who you are. And I heard this, and I saw this path, and an angel came next to me. He stood next to me, and he said, "I'm to accompany you along this path." As we walked on this path, I came to a place where there was a beautiful garden. And I looked over to where there was these flowers. And I asked the angel, can I pick one? And he says, "Yes, you can." So I picked this flower, and I smelled it. Oh, the smell. I never smelled anything so good. And he said, "It's okay, put the flower down." And as soon as I put the flower down, it grew. And pretty soon the plant started to grow, and that same flower that I had picked was alive. It was alive. That flower was alive. And it followed me. It looked at me. And I thought, well, this is weird. This is good weird. A flower that's alive. A flower that looks at me. And I looked at the angel. Is that flower alive? And he smiled. "Yes, everything here is alive. Would you like to sit on one of those benches?" So I walked over, and I sat on one of the benches. And it was solid gold, but so beautiful. It had all these little etches and flowery type carvings on it. And I sat down, and when I sat down, I went, "Whoa, this chair is alive." Angel sat down next to me, smiled, and he said, "Yes, everything is alive, even this bench." And this bench, I started to have pictures. And that picture of when I was a little child, and somebody stole the load, and they read me a story, and I felt good about that story. And I kept seeing one picture after another of all the things that happened in my life. And he pointed over to these trees. I looked up at these trees. They were 1,000 feet tall. And they were so huge, you thought you could drive a car around it. And then there was another tree. It was crystal clear. A tree that's crystal clear. And I asked the angel, can I go over to and touch that? And as I touched that diamond tree. He says, these are diamond trees. And I touched the diamond tree. And this brilliant, beautiful shininess went all through my body. And I thought, do I feel this? Do I smell this? And the angel looked up and picked one of the leaves. It was a heart. And that heart was a diamond. Was a diamond leaf. A leaf that looked just like a diamond, but it was a leaf, and it was a shape of a heart. And the heart had such a beautiful aroma. And I asked the angel, can I pick that diamond off the tree? So I picked it, and the aroma came into me and strengthened me. I felt strong again. Because as you're in heaven, your body can't really handle all the light and the strength of all the things that are happening, and you see such amazing things. And the angel said, we have to keep going. There is a beautiful building. I need to take you to that building. I said, well, what's in the building? It's books. And these books are one of those books is your book of life. I have a book, and it's about my life. Yes, it's a book already written. It's already prepared for you. Children, there's books about you. A book is written about you. A book is written about you. And it's all the pages tell of everything that's going to happen in your life. And as you pray and you say, oh, dear God, let my life be so perfectly put together so that the book of life and all that my life is about will come to pass the way you've written it about my life. And I knew as I went into that hall, I walked up the steps, and there are these beautiful doors, and they opened up. And the angel helped me come in. And there was this book. It looked like it was so huge. It was so huge. It looked like it was a mile high. And I thought, what? That's my life? Every thought that I've ever thought, every thought that God thought about me, all was written in that book. It was mile high. It was filled with every word and every thought. And children, you have to be careful with your words, because the good words, you have to ask God to forgive you for bad words. And I did. All my life, I asked God, oh God, I said that thing. I shouldn't have said that. And please forgive me. Wash my heart and take those words captive. I hold them in obedience to the power of the blood. And I don't want any word to have any effect on me that would keep this book from happening the way it should be. So I learned to pray that over every day. Every day is special, children. Every day is the only day you have. You wake up every morning and there's this love that comes over you. And I remember as I looked at that book, and I remember the love that greeted me every day. Captain Crabby I was so amazed that everything was alive. The book was alive. The thoughts that God had to me, thousands of thoughts that were so big and so wonderful and surrounding my life. I thought, I was so mesmerized, so amazed at all the words and that all the thoughts that God thought about me. He thinks good thoughts about you, children. And because he thinks good thoughts about you, when a thought comes to you, it goes bing, and you kind of go, ooh, that was a good thought. And you have these good thoughts, children. And this angel tree, this diamond tree, and the angel next to me. And he brought me into this hall, and there was my book. And as I realized in that book, there were the adventures of my life. Do you like adventures, children? Captain Crabby loves adventures, going across the sea and going to the Congo and meeting these children in those places in Congo. And all of that was because it was written in my book. when that tribe leader was being raised from the dead, I saw that in my book. And it was a story about he who was dead and he had gone to hell. And he was hearing the screams and the yellings of people, and Jesus took him. And this woman who had been praying for him, that the village would come to know Jesus. They were all sitting there listening, and they were watching as Captain Crabby, and this was in his book, the whole story of Captain Crabby and the tribal leader being raised from the dead. That was in the book. Oh my goodness. It was so exciting for me to see that was in there. And the other ones where there was the ship and it was going up and down and up and down. And Captain Crabby and Mr. Crabby were in that boat together. Whoa. I was in that, and I remember holding on to the railing of the boat and going up the waves. And these flying fish were flying in the air. That was in my book, children. I got to see all of these adventures and the things that I've always wanted to do, and be in different places and be with different people. And I'd met this man, and he was in that book. He was a man that had traveled from Turkey. And his family heard a little boy and told him to make a map that would go from Turkey all the way across the ocean over to where there was New York. And from New York, he showed the map, and it would go all the way to Azusa Street. And nobody knew what Azusa Street. Nobody knew that boy would grow up in Azusa Street. And Azusa Street is another story. But this story is about all that was written about my life. And this man, when he met me one time, he reached his hand out, and I went, oh, and I fell down. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know that a man could shake your hand and you faint. You didn't know what it was. You just lay there. But it wasn't good. It was a wonderful feeling. And that feeling made me feel alive. It was in that book, children. It was in that book. All the adventures and people I had met, they were all in that book. And as I stood before that book, and I started to remember all the great and mighty things that had happened to me.